Everybody, welcome to day 2 of the Quarantine Virtual Insights Conference. We're thrilled to have you back. We're very excited to get rolling. I am Bill McDowell, COO of Accelerant Research, and we're going to be your hosts for one more action-packed day of presentations. Went through a longer spiel yesterday. Not going to do that today. But we are going to just, I'm going to do a quick intro and then we're going to jump right into our presenters for today. First thing I'm going to do is kind of walk us through some of the presentations we're going to be seeing today. We're going to start with Dr. Paul Zak, talking about remote research using distributed neuroscience, which very cool topic. You'll notice that all of the topics that we're looking at today, some are, I like to call real world or regular world research. Some are more pertinent to, the situation and the craziness that we find ourselves in these days. We've got a really nice mix of, folks from, and not only presenters, but also, attendees. We've got students, we've got academics, we've got MRX, UX, shopper insight, CX, whatever other X's you can possibly think of. We've got a really, we're casting a wide net in terms of the content that we're providing, and it's kind of a cool just gathering of insights nerds to talk shop. So second presentation today is going to be from Jenny Callens of Ford Motor Company. Rapport at a distance, getting into the groove with your interviewee. Couldn't be a more timely topic. We've got Chris E. from Regions Bank, going to be talking about research strategies for highly regulated fields. Reg Baker from SOMAR, couldn't be more timely. Data privacy during the pandemic, and where do we go from here? We've got Tom Summers from Tegna talking about real-time media insights in the age of COVID. Joel Barr with what is, I imagine, a timely presentation for a lot of the folks in the audience. It's certainly something that's on everyone's mind, but with, furloughs, downsizing, and all that is going on right now, the job hunt within these crazy times that we're living in. Chad Sanderson is going to talk about A/B testing best practices. And we're going to finish the day with Beth Guido from Facebook. We've actually got a bonus presentation is Beth's this afternoon. We went until, let's see, 6 p.m. Eastern last night. We're actually going to go to 6:30 with Beth's kind of change of pace presentation. The rest of the presenters will be hour long. Beth is going to be more of a TED Talk-ish format, 10, 15 minutes, and then Q&A. It'll be the last one of the day, so I think everybody will be in the mood for a change of pace. And we're going to get started. A couple of housekeeping items. We've had several people ask about the availability of recordings and archives for the presentations. Yes is the answer to that. All of the video webinars from yesterday as well as today will be made available for archive purposes. We are also requesting presentation decks for download. That is going to be case by case. We're waiting, some folks will have permission from their organizations, some will not. We will post all that are available to be posted. But for certain video archive, we're good to go from that standpoint. Let's see, going to go through our conference ground rules. Again, this is a virtual conference, not in person, but we're trying our best to mimic and to capture the essence as best we can of an in-person conference. The one big caveat being that we're at the mercy of tech, right? Everybody and their cousin right now is using web meeting platforms. And while we are hosting this particular conference on Zoom, we're also streaming on YouTube, trying to give a diverse set of access points for everyone. Tech is definitely under strain right now, and there's certainly the possibility that we will either lose our web meeting platform that one of our participants who is working from home will potentially, have internet issues. Or, yesterday we had Susan Lawson from Allstate who had just a fantastic moment, that captured the essence of what we're up against. But she had, the multi-hour delivery window for an appliance at home. And guess when it came? Right when her presentation was beginning. So she had to scramble, we adjusted, and hey, it is what it is. We're researchers, we're used to that. We've pivoted to what is now a virtual presentation as opposed to in person. So, anything comes up, we'll adjust and we'll make it work. But definitely appreciate everyone attending, everyone being understanding of the fact that we are, putting this together very quickly. We've got a fantastic bunch of presenters again today. Hats off to these guys, which brings me to our ground rule number 2, and that is be respectful. This is not something I'm worried about, but, the remote nature of this, allows a little more anonymity and the potential for trolling and, being a little bit more critical of our presenters than maybe we should. Let's just keep it respectful. These folks have really done a great job in a short amount of time of pulling together some fantastic content. So let's all sit back and enjoy it, but not sit back too much, which brings me to bullet point number 3. This is a remote and virtual conference, so we don't have the ability to have cocktail hours and mixers and shake hands with one another. So let's try to simulate it as best we can. Let's engage. We've got chat and Q&A that are open in the Zoom conference. We've got a hashtag that we've been using on Twitter and LinkedIn, the QVIC 2020 hashtag. Definitely encourage you guys to get as engaged and involved as you can. Let's make this truly interactive. We did a great job yesterday with that, and I have no doubt that today is going to be equally great. Let's see. From an interactive networking standpoint, I'm going to throw out potential topics throughout the day, allow you guys to talk amongst yourselves. I think memes are what's really keeping us going through this time. So to the extent you guys want to get on the Twitter and LinkedIn and share some of the memes that you're loving, that would be great. I think it's entertaining for all of us. Feel free to talk about and share and, show us, the workspaces that you have carved out at home, the space that you are trying to share with your family. We're certainly interested in that. And if anybody is playing buzzword bingo, definitely, share that with us. If there are any cards circulating, we'd love to see those. I'm going to go ahead and throw out paradigm shift. I don't think that is one that has been said throughout the presentations yet. And let's just go ahead and do blockchain as well. And I think somebody just got bingo. All right, that's enough talking from me. What I'm going to do is now hand off to our first presenter, and that's Dr. Paul Zak from Immersion Neuroscience with a really cool topic, which obviously couldn't be more timely right now, but this is remote research using distributed neuroscience. So I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let Paul take over. Paul, are you unmuted?
I'm good.
All right. We're off to
Thank you to Bill. Thanks for Accelerant for hosting this. Happy to be here and talking to my research colleagues. So what I want to talk about is how you can do real neuroscience research at a distance, remotely, anywhere you are. Some technology we developed about 15 years in the making, and give you a bunch of examples of the insights and then actually show you how it works in real time. So that's where we're going. I'll quit about 10 minutes early so we have time for questions and just go from there. So here we go. Let me do a share screen. And my 1-year-old German Shepherd puppy is here with me. So if you hear some panting in the background, it's not me, it's him. He may come over and nuzzle me at some point. So towards the end, I'll give you a picture of the puppy. Okay, so here's my contact info. If anything I say sounds interesting or provocative or insane or whatever that is, email me. Happy to engage with you guys. Really, it's been 15 years of sort of craziness to create a platform in which we've democratized neuroscience. We've created a way for anyone to do real neuroscience by creating a real-time, fully data processed platform so that you can get these deep insights. So let's just start with kind of the core issue, which is, why the heck would we do this? So for many years, we have been looking at USA Today rankings of Super Bowl commercials. So USA has done this for almost 30 years. And so I have to use one bad word today. So, if you're sensitive, plug your ears for a second. So the most important word in science is the word bullshit, right? So science is about getting rid of bullshit. And so how do you do that? You replicate over and over. You change measurement techniques. You change statistical techniques, right? So you're really trying to get down to a high degree of confidence that the findings you have are true signal and not noise. And that's particularly true in neuroscience, because most of what your brains are doing right now are keeping you upright, breathing, and conscious. And a little bit's responding to my voice and the information in my voice. And so the ability to find that ribbon and find it a robust predictor of what people will do is really hard. And that's why we spent 20 years doing this. And I'll talk a little about the science, but we can go more deeply into that. We started by doing over 10,000 blood draws. Personally, I did 10,000 blood draws. So measuring changes in neurochemicals. Okay, so here's the basic issue. We're working from home. Awesome. We still have surveys. We still have ways to communicate with folks. And so when we started doing this work, our idea was, let's run it against, run our technology that was designed, I should say, with funding from the US government, the US military, US intelligence community, so millions of dollars of R&D in this. Let's run this against what I think are the best commercials every year, which are run during the Super Bowl. Best because the media buy is the most expensive. Companies save up all year and plan, months and months and months in advance to do this. So here's the kind of basic tension. When you look at immersion, which is a neurologic state I'll define in a couple of minutes, you look at some neurologic measure of the impact of commercials on the brain, and you compare that to what people say they like in the USA Today rankings, they are uncorrelated. We've done this for 5 or 6 years now in a row, and this is, I think, from 2018. That provides attention from a research perspective, right? So we make a lot of decisions based on what people say they like. And so we've got to dig into why those rankings would be different. So I want to show you just a couple of these, and then we can talk about them. So I'm going to show you those with the neurologic data second by second, animated below the ad. So that's what we're going to do. If my screen will forward. Let's see. So yeah, let's listen to this thing.
Diet Coke Twisted Mango, because that's why. Can't help it. Hey, still going. Maybe slowing it down. Maybe it's getting sexier. I don't know. Mango does.
Okay, so USA Today readers say that this is one of the least likable ads, and yet it's very, very immersive to the brain. For short form videos, the mean is around 4, close to 4, and the standard deviation is around 0.25. This is starting 4 standard deviations above the mean. So this is a weird commercial. This lady's like a giraffe. She's got this super long legs. She's moving in a weird way. It's got this yellow wall. It's asymmetric. And so this immersion peak, if you can see my pointer, happens when she says, now I'm slowing down, now I'm getting sexy. It is like a train wreck, but you can't look away, right? So the question that we asked in the last 15 years was, if we could identify signals in the brain that motivated people to take an action, like purchase Diet Coke, or remember an ad, or email your congressperson, or donate to charity, what would those signals be like? So we identified this neurologic state immersion by working backwards. Okay, so we are in the prediction business. I'm really not interested in feelings. Think of my poor wife. I have no feelings at all. No, feelings are great in your personal life, but from a work perspective, what's most important is, can I predict individual and market outcomes? So that was a question that we started answering 15 years ago with funding from the US taxpayers. So something interesting happens here. This thing starts very high, it's odd. I kind of acclimate neurologically to this. And then I get another peak as the structure of that short ad changes. So something is happening here, right? So we have to figure out kind of what this means. So let's look at this. So again, I've blown this up so you can see the distribution a little higher. So again, this is where she's getting kind of slowing down, get this really big immersion peak. And this is right, the branding moment happens about here. So this is actually really good. So we know from the peak end rule in psychology is that people tend to remember the peak parts of an experience and the end of an experience. So if that branding opportunity happens when you have an immersion peak, you get better recall, you get a higher likelihood of having an action. So that potentially is a very strong way to create a higher impact ad. Let's compare this to this Alexa loses her voice ad that people said they really liked. And let's just look at the neurologic data and then diagnose what's going on.
In Austin, it's 60 degrees with a... Alexa?
Amazon's Alexa lost her voice this morning, causing
Alexa lost her voice. How is that even possible?
We have the replacements ready. Just say the word.
And you're sure this is going to work?
Yeah.
Alexa, show me a recipe for a grilled cheese sandwich.
Pathetic. You're 32 years of age, and you don't know how to make a grilled cheese sandwich. Its name is the recipe, you...
Alexa, how far is Mars?
How far is Mars? Well, how am I supposed to know? I've never been there. This guy want to go to Mars. For what? There's not even oxygen there.
Alexa, set the mood.
Now setting the mood. You're in the bush, and you're just so dirty, and you're so sweaty, because it's hot in that bush.
Alexa, reboot.
Alexa, play some country music.
I don't dance now. I make money moves.
No, Alexa, country music.
I be in and out them dance so much I know they tired of me.
Alexa, call Brandon.
I'm afraid Brandon is a little tied up. But do let me know if there's anything I can help you with. Jessica?
Hey,
Boy.
thanks, guys, but I'll take it from here.
Okay, so this is a 90-second ad. Sorry, it's a 2-minute ad. And our analysis showed that if they had stopped at 30 seconds, it's a little hard to see variation in this curve, but basically the pattern repeats. And from the brain's perspective, the brain is recognizing patterns. And when that pattern is recognized, then you have less immersion. So the brain wants to save energy. So when I recognize that pattern, there's less reason for me to be fully immersed in this ad. So again, the graph here is not perfect, but basically this immersion, other than this little peak here, begins to fall, doesn't do much. Had Amazon stopped at a 30-second ad, they would have been in the top 3. This thing drops like a rock because the same thing happened. So in 2018, Super Bowl ads were $5.3 million for 30 seconds. So Amazon spent $20 million to air this thing, and at least that to produce and hire these actors. They could have saved a ton of money by testing and creating a 30-second high impact, leave them wanting more, end on a peak note, but they just ran it too long. So again, 90-second ads in the Super Bowl or 2-minute ads were very, very rare. And so Amazon wasted a ton of money for lack of testing, because now we're kind of using our intuition, right? For content creators, we're using intuition. We have the luxury as researchers to go back and say, what should they have done better? What we've done in Immersion Neuroscience is create a workflow software that uses neuroscience all through the production of content, particularly content that is meant to have high impact. In other words, content in which the cost of being wrong is high. You really want to test before you release this into the wild, and you want to optimize that content for maximum action, not feelings. Nice if you like it, that's great. Maximum feelings. So why does that? Sorry, maximum impact, not feelings. So why does that matter? When we looked at, this is 2018 data, and when we looked at the USA Today ad meter correlation between our proxy for sales impact, I don't have sales data for all these companies, YouTube views and YouTube comments, liking has a negative correlation, and immersion, whatever immersion is, which I'll talk about in a second, has a positive impact. So whatever liking measures is not telling you about at least kind of the viral impact of these ads. So we've got to do something better than asking people about liking. So if we're working remotely and we're doing surveys, you've got to be really skeptical. So lots of published research showing that liking is a very poor predictor of what people actually do. So as I said, our job is to either create content or identify why content works or doesn't work. So how do I know that? Right now we have specialists, artists, content creators, ad agencies, movie studio producers and directors, right? So they have special knowledge, but they're not perfect because all humans get tired, they get hungry, they get cranky, and all that affects the way you evaluate content. And so we've got to have a better objective way to do it. So here's just some data. Netflix last year produced 1,000 original shows, spent $15 billion, and of those, about 65% were canceled in the first year. So they spent about $9 billion with a B creating content that landed and disappeared. It's true for new music. It's true most movies lose money, right? On and on and on. We're batting, well below 300 here. So how do we get better at that? How do we not waste resources? How do we improve the impact? And my nerdy answer is measurement. We've got to measure something, right? So again, for the clients that use our platform, they're primary clients that need to reduce the risk of being wrong because the cost of being wrong is quite high, right? Financially high, affects your job. It's great you have in the sessions today, you have one on job search, very relevant. So yeah, people lose their jobs when they make the wrong calls, right? Happens all the time at movie studios, TV stations, and probably in some of your businesses as well. So, we're depending on these possible biases of content creators, right? That are very difficult to assess. We have really great clients that have groups of content creators that critique each other. It's very famous, not a client of ours, but very famous at Pixar. They spend a lot of time developing content, getting feedback from their colleagues so that they can try to rule out all these biases and do this over and over and over until something kind of rises to the top. But we're still basing that on, like Pixar, what people say they like, basically. I like this part of this movie, I like this part of this ad, or this ad's better. Or in the advertising world, the ad agency roughs out 5 versions and they really think version 1's the best, but the client goes, oh no, I love version 5. It's got that actor that I really like. And the agency knows it's not as good just based on their, vast knowledge of doing this work. And yet the client goes, no, we got to have this one. So how do we get objective data to get better at this? And the punchline is people lie. And they don't lie because they're evil. They lie because we're asking their brains to do something that's very difficult, which is to relate their unconscious and emotional responses to content. So we sort of all have this, what I call a Freudian hangover. We think if we just dig enough, ask the right questions, that somehow we will understand, what the true knowledge is. That's my dog making some noise. So it's not true at all. So, hey, stop it. It's complete balderdash, right? Sit. You can't get the unconscious to become conscious in most cases. You can't do it authentically or truthfully, right? What you can do is you can, get a view of that, but it may be biased in many, many ways. It's like asking your liver how to enjoy your breakfast this morning. You say, well, that's a crazy statement. We somehow think because our brains create language that we have some insight into our unconscious emotional responses, and those by and large are hidden to us. So the academic data shows that if you ask people what they like, you'll be right about 30% of the time. And some studies push that down to 15%. So there's a pretty big range in which mostly you're missing, right? So we saw that with the relation between liking and YouTube views for Super Bowl commercials, which should be fabulous. So what's the solution? Measuring the brain directly. So let's talk about the science, and then I'll give you a bunch of examples and some really current examples that we've done just in the last 2 weeks that may give you some actionable insights you can take home from this. If you guys recognize my name, I'm sort of semi-famous for being the first scientist to identify the behavioral effects of this neurochemical oxytocin. I've been working on that for more than 20 years. And we really looked at applications of this. Once we did the basic science, how can we use this? So I've written a bunch of books on this, TED Talks. Google me later. Listen to the talk now, but you can Google me later. So as we did this work, we got funding, as I said, from the US government. And the question was, could we reverse engineer a process to create a test bed so that the US military could be more effective at communication, so they would reduce conflict. We communicate better, then we have less conflict. So that was something we spent many years, and as I said, several $1 million of taxpayer money on, so that we could help the military create this test bed. And because we had so much money, we basically measured brain activity every way possible simultaneously. And so for the researchers out there, you know that finding robust predictors are fine. For the non-technical people, robust means consistently predictive, right? So we basically measured using high density EEG, using fMRI, as I said, lots of blood draws, peripheral neurologic measures. We began to winnow out these neurologic data streams that were not consistently predictive across different experimental protocols. And then identified ones that were predictive. How do we know they're predictive? Because we did drug studies that we use drugs to turn on or off parts of the brain and show that those affect the behaviors that we were trying to predict. So we spent, again, many, many years. Google Scholar me and you can find all the scientific research on this. So what we identified was you need two things to motivate people to take an action after an experience. They got to pay attention. That's the necessary condition. If you're not paying attention, if you're listening to a podcast while you see my mouth moving, you're not going to get much out of this, right? So that's not exciting. We know that already. Now, attention is costly. Your brain, again, wants to save energy, so you've got to earn attention. We say pay attention, and that's exactly the right word. The second is you have to actually care about what's going on. It has to be emotionally resonant in you. And so this state in which you're attentive and you're also emotionally engaged by this experience, I've named immersion, right? This is why people cry at movies, right? You're at a movie theater, you know this is a fictional story, you know where you are, you're cognitively intact, you know these are professional actors, and yet at the end when the boy gets the girl, we start crying. Or I've heard that people do that, maybe not me, of course, but Bill, I know, is a big movie crier, so Bill cries all the time. So why do we do that, right? Because we've been immersed in this story. It's as if we are having this emotional experience. And that's the same thing we found when people respond to ads or respond to a great customer service experience or put a great Yelp review up. All these ways we've worked to get rid of the potential for bias in this. So this is basically how the system works, and I'm going to show you some examples. One is, you create some compelling content. This could be roughs, could be storyboards, and then you grab some people to look at it. What we've done is instead of having to wear a helmet or go in a big magnetic tube, we've been able to take data from an off-the-shelf wearable sensor, which I have on right now, Apple Watch, Fitbit, a variety of different wearable sensors, and then because we've traced out the relationship between the peripheral nervous system and the brain, we can infer from that sensor what's happening in the brain. And because we've placed all this technology and algorithms in the cloud, we can do that in real time and at scale. So I can do 1,000 people at once, I can do 100 people at once, I can do one person at a time. Right? So I'm going to show you what that platform looks like in just a second. But the key is that we've written this algorithm that identifies neurologic immersion from measurements in the peripheral nervous system, and wrote very efficient code so that we can actually watch that in real time. So you can be doing a study, a neurofocus group, testing content in St. Louis, Missouri, and you can be sitting in your office in New York, and you can actually watch that data come out in real time. So I just have a video camera, you can see what's happening. So from a client perspective, it's really sexy because they're seeing the brain activity of people in that room in real time while it's happening. And as soon as that event's over, you get a whole bunch of metrics, and we'll talk about that. So metrics that tell you, is it good or bad? That's a benchmark issue. How do I make it better? And we built a bunch of benchmarks to do that, which I'll talk about. All right, so this platform does a number of things. One, it quantifies second by second people's unconscious emotional responses to live events, to advertising, to entertainment content, movies, and so you can identify second by second how it works. Secondly, as I said, all these algorithms were written in reverse. We found the brain activity for people who responded to an experience compared to those who didn't, responded in an objectively identifiable way. Not liking, but I donated money to a charity, or I emailed my congressperson, or I bought this product. And I'll give you just a snapshot of the different ways we've tested this over the last 15 years. So, again, a lot of it's published in the scientific literature. So then what are people going to do? Individuals and markets. I'll give you examples of that in a second. And then you can tell a lot about the audience. So we've written algorithms to identify neurologic superfans. Who digs this experience the most? Who's going to go on social media and talk about it? Who's your responder? Who are your leverage points, your evangelists that just are over the top? So this is about targeting, right? So instead of targeting demographically or psychographically, why not target neurographically? Identify whose brains are super turned on by this and get them to help you. And then lastly, identify people who are frustrated. They're just checked out, just didn't work for them for whatever reason. So we have a bunch of clients in the corporate training space. And so for corporate training, I want to get people up to some level of competency and then have them apply that so they're more productive, they sell more, whatever those goals are. Well, our software has a leaderboard. I can see who the superstars are. They're people who can generate peer discussions, who can then leverage this event, people who understood the material just fine, that's great. And then who's below the mark? Not because they're bad people, maybe they were tired, they were traveling, or this presenter just didn't work for them. They had a funny accent, or they were monotone. So I want to know that if this material didn't land well for me as, say, a facilitator of training, I haven't done my job well enough. It's my responsibility to get the information into your brain, and that's what immersion measures. So when I'm immersed in an experience, my brain tags it as important because it's got those emotional resonance to it. And when it's tagged as important, it's actually saved in the brain in a very particular way that makes it easier to access in the future, right? So that's well established. What we did is we identified neurologic signals that tell us when that ease of recall is going to happen. So great. 20% of my class just didn't get this information. Awesome. Let's send them an email follow-up. Hey, you know what? We found out the session didn't work great for you. Here's some follow-up so we can get you up to speed with everybody else. Awesome. Let's do that. That's super, super useful, right? So again, I don't have to guess. I don't have to wait 6 months to see if your sales went up or not. Let's find out now immediately, and then it's quite valuable, and then rectify that as soon as possible. So we've been in business about 2.5 years. We were stealth the first 2 years. Most of our clients are in the entertainment space, in the training and live event space. So again, these are people who really have to ensure that the content they're creating matters. When TV Networks is a client. So again, we're a prediction engine, right? It's nice if you like my content. It's more important if you watch it, share it, talk about it, post it on YouTube, on and on and on. That's where the return on this experience comes from. So we're about quantifying return on experience. So this is the getting rid of the bullshit thing. So we've tested this so many different ways. So this is both published scientific research and client work. So we had a client in the reality TV space, a fairly large reality TV client, and they wanted to use immersion to predict which shows are going to be hits and which were dogs. And a lot of reality TV shows are, not that good. let's be honest. They sort of, go down the drain. So able to predict with 88% accuracy which shows will be hits versus will be misses. Retail purchases, this is having luxury clothing stores in which the salespeople wear a sensor on their forearm, and we can use the immersion of the salesperson in that sales experience to predict which clients purchase with 84% accuracy. Why? Because immersion is contagious. Just like crying in the movie, when that great character in a movie has an emotional response, you are mirroring that. And so we get the same thing in luxury shopping. Sales bumps is work, it's public that we did with BBDO. So they actually took sales bump data from their clients and in a blinded study asked us to predict which ads produce the highest sales bumps. We did that with 83% accuracy. Recent client in LA, we used this to predict music purchases, Spotify download, Shazam searches in the high 80s, the low 90% accuracy. Donations to charity, we've done a lot of work on that and published research. Food preferences, and importantly for trainers, for even for entertainment, and certainly for branding, recall of information, very strong correlation. Liking, as I said, we can't find any correlation between liking and information recall. So again, there's lots more. I'm not showing you, this is 15 years of research. So I'm just showing you a smattering, and obviously I'm showing you the really good stuff. In almost all situations, we found that immersion is a very strong predictor of what people will do and what markets will do. Okay, let's get into the current period. So now we're all remote. So because we built the system to be software as a service, not come into a lab, 14 PhDs, using very expensive machines to really force an insight from that machine into what you should do, we did the opposite. We said we're device agnostic. We use multiple devices and multiple data streams, and we just want to build a predictive measure that we call immersion. So if we're all working from home, again, if I'm doing a survey from home, maybe I take it seriously, maybe I don't, I have no idea. But from home, we can use our distributed neuroscience platform to actually collect neurologic data while people are at home. And I will give you a couple examples in the last 2 weeks of stuff we've collected, which I think is quite interesting. So you've got to measure what matters. And what matters is what the brain is responding to, right? That's the core issue you want to get to. And again, until our company, there was no way to measure that at scale in real time, and certainly no way to do it remotely. I don't know when we're going to be able to congregate in a room, but sitting knee to knee with 20 other people, in a testing facility, that it may be a long time before that comes back, right? So we've got to be aware that we're going to need a different technology where people may not want to congregate, or at least not congregate densely. But again, because our platform lives in the cloud, you can collect neurologic data. And again, the most important neurologic data, not I have this device and I'm forcing an interpretation on it, just a prediction machine measuring those robust predictors of market outcomes. We can do that anywhere. So, okay, let's see some examples. I think I covered this. Yeah, we've done it lots of different ways. So I'm going to just give you a little video here. This is of a movie trailer, and here's some of the devices we can hack the signal from. So again, we can use a wearable sensor like an Apple Watch, because Apple Watch will pick up heart rate, and heart rate is innervated by the brain, right? Heart rate is controlled by the brain. So because we have meticulously worked backwards and traced out those pathways from the nerves that innervate the heart into the brain, we can infer brain activity from that. So let me just kind of talk over this. This is a movie trailer. The platform allows you to upload the content you're testing, and it will overlay that data second by second. You can see on the top there are metrics. I made the video small here, so you can't really see the content super well, but I want to kind of focus on what's happening second by second. And this looks like it's across, if you look up here, well, I can't even see, 15, 16 people. So now you can actually look at the spread of that data across different individuals. So I'm going to, in this video, now have it look at, I think, 3 different individuals, and you can see the spread in that data. You'll see that immersion for those 3 individuals is highly correlated. So here we go. Not perfectly correlated, but highly correlated, right? There's a little bit of time shift in that. And in particular, this person who's purple is one of these super fans. We call them evangelists, right? So this super fan digs this, this trailer for a Marvel picture enormously, right? Really interesting. Now, when this thing ends, it ends on low immersion, right? So the branding should have happened here, right? So again, for want of testing, you've dissipated the impact of this ad. So think of immersion as tension, right? So we create narrative arc stories to build tension. And so we're capturing that tension in the brain. Once that tension's high, the reason that people do take an action is they want to dissipate that tension by doing something. And here, I've let that tension decline. I have less incentive to do something neurologically because I've sort of let that tension dissipate. So this is where you want that branding to occur. Same thing for video. So I'll give you. I'm just going to see this. I think this is. For some reason, it's replaying. Here we go. So some of these are public, some are not. So I mentioned major TV network uses our technology to identify pilots to run in the falls and also to edit shows for high impact, particularly to keep people from tuning out, like during commercials. So if I end on an immersion peak, then I'm less likely to tune out. Accenture, a longtime client, uses our technology to prove the ROI from their training and improve that training as they begin to tweak it. A major appliance company that you would know, worldwide company, uses our technology both to improve their ads, but also for in-store experiences. So because our technology goes anywhere, you can strap on a GoPro camera and you can have people shop or just use the camera in your phone, put it in your pocket, and you can actually quantify what that experience is like. And Bishop McCann, which is a big events company in Kansas City, really looks at returning, getting a high return experience, proving to their clients who are, doing most of this corporate training, corporate events. Is this stuff getting into your brain? Are we creating an experience that is really going to make an impact so that you get a return on the time and money you've spent creating this experience? Okay, so just quick overview. Easy to do this. You can use your own consumers. You can use panel companies that can provide these consumers. Again, as long as they have a wearable that we can get a signal from, then we can have them download our mobile app. You can either present data to them synchronously via Zoom, go to meetings, something like we're doing today, or you can do it asynchronously. Again, you have the software, use the subscription. People do whatever they want with it. We certainly guide them and train them to use it, but honestly, with an hour of training, you're ready to go. It's super easy to use. And like I said, I'm going to show you in a second. And then as soon as you finish the data collection, you have all the metrics. You can download the data and do advanced statistical analysis. So very easy to do. So simple app, Android, iOS app, pair the sensor, and then things are ready to go. So let me just show you some outcomes from this, and then I'll take some questions. So I mentioned the song, predicting song outcomes. So Stereo is a startup company in LA that we worked with. And they want to know pre-release, if we have people listen to songs, could we actually predict outcomes? So we had 21 people that they picked, listen to the first minute of 7 different songs from Stereo's Artist in Residence program. And again, this is getting the bullshit out of the analysis. So Spotify streams predicted a month after the song was released, so we did this pre-release, 92% accuracy on Spotify streams, 72% accuracy on Shazam lookups. We showed that if you could increase the peak immersion of that song by 10%, you get 5,000 more streams on Spotify, right? That's elasticity. That means if I would measure immersion while I'm creating this song, then I could actually have a bigger impact. Predict song completion, so lots of other stuff here. All the data start to line up. So, reliability is really the key to confidence. And so either we're super lucky or the luckiest, group on the planet, or this stuff really works. So that's why I'm going to share this slide with you. So a couple new things, then I'll take some questions. So one is an article I wrote that came out a couple days ago in Broadcasting and Cable. And we ran a remote neuroscience study. asking, what do people really want to watch during the pandemic? So we gave them a clip of a really scary news program, and we gave them clips of a whole bunch of top-rated shows across different streaming platforms. And what we found was that people loved comedies that they were familiar with. So familiar comedies is what people really want. So dramas not so much, reality shows not so much. It's really comedy. So again, to me, this is valuable intel, right? People may or may not tell you this, but to see particularly the size effects here, right? These are all statistically significant. The size effects are amazing. So this is, again, the news story was our baseline. So compared to the news story, what's really turning me on? Well, if I want to watch a scary drama about opioid addiction, the pharmacist, I'll just watch the COVID news, right? It's really comedy. So apparently The Office is the highest rated comedy on Netflix. So there's a reason for that. People really want it, particularly now. So you can change your programming around that. Again, streaming, you can do whatever you want. But for broadcast, you really want to know this. Sorry. And so we did a study just a couple days ago. This is pre-release. You guys are going to see it here first. So how should brands communicate? So we just grabbed a bunch of brand communications during the pandemic and asked which one of those is the most immersive. So you can see the companies here. So the highest immersion companies were insurance companies, USAA and State Farm. Again, they're very reassuring. They featured employees that were not polished. They're about helping others, that we're here for you. So that's very reassuring, quite high immersion. Next down was a ad for Las Vegas. So the lights are off in Las Vegas, but we're here. When things reopen, you're gonna wanna have some fun. Very, very beautiful ad, actually. If you haven't seen it, you can find it online. Beautiful production values, great voiceover. And the middle was companies that were like, hey, we're here for you and buy some of our stuff. So those didn't do so great. Burger King, Ford, Miller Beer, VW. Ford and Burger King really had sales pitches. Ford's, I said soft sales pitch, but actually it was not so soft. And the lowest ones were like, tell you what you should do. The Ad Council was this PSA on like social distancing, just words on a screen with exclamation of social distancing, exclamation point. It was kind of bad. Anyway, QuickBooks, we support small businesses, keep buying our software. And Purdue Farms, which is a very sweet ad with the family member who's the CEO of that, Jim Purdue, on his cell phone, and we're supporting farmers, whatever. It was very nice, but it was just, it was just him talking, and so we're like, okay, it's interesting, and then just immersion falls over time. So, so be inclusive, be supportive, show employees, show that you're still working. That's a better way to communicate. Again, useful. Let's learn from this. Let's use this so we have a bigger impact now and post pandemic. So last thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to share a different screen. I hooked myself up to my own sensor, and I've been collecting my data this entire time. So this is actually the platform. This is Quarantine Conference Demo. This is what clients log into. This is my demo site. And if you watch the far right of that line, you'll see that that thing actually is measuring from my wearable sensor going to my iPhone in real time how immersed I am. So we scaled immersion so that it's linear, it runs from 0 to 10. Everyone can understand that. 6 is twice as good as a 3. And you can see I'm getting these really high immersion peaks because I am performing at some level. I am talking to you. I am giving a presentation. And so we do see is that these data, it's a little hard to see here, are kind of a sine wave, right? So when you're deeply immersed in something, it's metabolically costly, and you need a little neural break after that. So these data are almost always a sine wave. This marker I put in was when Bill started talking right around 8 o'clock, California time, 11 o'clock East Coast time. This is when I started talking. So you see, most of these peaks happen when I'm excited about something, I'm telling you about something, so you can watch all this in real time. So with that, I thought we'd take a couple of questions and see if you guys would like to engage with me. Okay, great question from person number 1. Testing is generally done for a mass audience. Right, so you could do a power test calculation and identify that you need 35 observations to have statistical reliability in these results. So because we're getting such rich data second by second, the sample size is much smaller to get statistical results, and the size effects are big. So if you want to stratify this sample, say by age or gender, then you want about 35%. It's actually 32 usable, but we recommend clients collect 35 because, you know, always some data gets you know, screwed up. So I think that's a great question. So yeah, you can actually do this quite fast. So if I want to get males, females, young and old, I can get 100 people in the room simultaneously and get this data. So it's very efficient. Right, so Brett asked, how does an arm sensor pick up a brain response? And that, again, we've written algorithms that infer the central nervous system activity from the peripheral nervous system because we've used drugs to trace out these pathways and measure central and peripheral simultaneously. Thanks for the nice work from Nick, appreciate that. Got a couple more questions here in our remaining, I'll quit a couple minutes early so everyone can get a bio break in. Let's see. So someone asked, how can the science of content research be used when designing satisfaction surveys and focus groups? We do have clients that do what I call neuro focus groups. So I can actually ask people what they think, and I think this is complementary to surveys. I don't think it replaces it. I still want to know what you think. There's some value in that, but I'm not going to get second by second data to content. People just can't self-report at that level. And you have accuracy issues. So I think it's really, you can see, for example, in the room, who your super fans are, right? Who really digs this? Ask them more questions, right? As opposed to sort of the general audience, or often in focus groups I've been in, you got one or two people who are just extroverted kind of big mouths, and they sort of dominate the conversation, but they may not be really into this. And they can actually show them the data. Hey, you know what? You were really into this, this video we just showed you. Why is that? Okay. All right, so Erica asks, let's see, what people want to watch, but does that predict behavior? So I think I covered the behavioral predictions. So again, we always started backwards. We did a lot of work on PSAs, a lot of this is published in literature. She asked about Tiger King. We didn't test that, but everyone's talking about it. I haven't seen it. Everyone's talking about it. So. But you know, we just the people on my team just grabbed stuff that was you know, seemed to be highest rated in YouTube. Okay, Doug asks about qualitative research and content testing. Yeah, so clients do want to know what people like. That's what Doug's asking. But we also want to know what's going to drive people to take an action. So I think those are complementary. There are occasionally are content that are not very likable that have a high impact. So I thought of Schindler's List. So when I saw that movie when it came out 20 years ago, I was in the theater, everyone just sat there when it was over. I mean, I've never been in a movie where people just sat. We were just exhausted and overwhelmed. And I'm so glad I saw that movie once, and I really don't want to see it again. So that was high impact, but is it likable? No. But from the Diet Coke example, that's not a likable commercial, but it moved product. Diet Coke, after that commercial aired, that first quarter of 2018, had their first quarter in like 9 quarters of increase in sales. So they had released a bunch of these Diet Coke Groove flavored drinks. So you can't say it's all the commercial, but you know, the strategy worked. Commercial probably helped a little bit. Okay, I'll get 2 more questions and then I'm going to let you guys go in 2 minutes, I promise. Julie asked, have we used it in the political sphere? We have, actually, just for fun. I'm apolitical. I just think they're all jerks. But yeah, we measured Democrats listening to Democratic debates 4 years ago and Republicans listening to Republican debates. And surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, this one there were 10 Republicans running. Trump was the most immersive by far. Number 2 was Rubio. In the Democratic debates, it was Bernie versus Hillary when we tested. And Hillary was almost at 0 for immersion, like in the closing arguments. She's probably highly qualified to be president, but she's a robot and she just does not generate that emotional response. Someone asked, can you identify superfans from heart rate alone? We don't use heart rate. We're doing very unnatural things to this data to infer what's going on in the brain. So no, heart rate's not a predictor. Wouldn't it be nice? Gosh, we all be in business, right? So no, much more complicated. So we have one more minute, and then I'm going to switch off and let Jenny take over, your next speaker. Yeah, have we come up with best practices on show alignment? We have. So again, we're a software company, and so when we onboard people, we work with them on their first couple studies, and then they take off. We don't always see the outcomes. And so the data that I've been giving to you guys is the data from these proof of value or internal studies we've done where we have outcomes. But yeah, we have a lot of knowledge from those clients on best practice, and we share that, or our customer success team shares that with clients. Yeah, I think I'm going to stop there, you guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the questions. I'm going to do a switch screen real quick so you can send me any questions you have. Happy to email and engage with you guys. If I can find my PowerPoint, which is here. And so there's my email, paul@getimmersion.com. Again, thanks so much for Bill McDowell, who's a real prince of a guy and Accelerant Research. It's really super awesome to be here, and I'm glad we can all get together. It's nice to see people and to be seen, and so it was really, really fun. So, okay, you guys need a quick bio break. Email me, and I look forward to hearing Jenny's talk as well. So thanks, everybody.